Hello everyone, my name is Pacha and welcome back to another episode of Tiergarten Edelwald. And today with, again a longer episode because we are also doing a much bigger build than in the last episodes, which focused on smaller exhibits for the Tanuki and the red crowned crane. No, today we are going west, I think, west in Asia. We're going from Japan to India, and we are gonna build. We're gonna build for a couple of Indian animals as well as one imposter. More about that in a moment. But today we are also building the largest habitat that this zoo has to offer. It's also, I think, one of the largest habitats in the original zoo of Schönbrunn, which of course is my inspiration for the zoo. But today we are gonna build on an area that is around 5,000 square meters big. Yeah, 5,000 square meters big, I think I would say. The original one is 6,000 square meters. Although I followed the original layout of the zoo as closely as I could. There's still 1,000 square meters missing, so I don't know where they hide these 1,000 square meters. I couldn't find it. Maybe they also count the indoor areas of the rhinos. Spoiler here, we're gonna build 4 rhinos among other things, but yeah, I don't know where the 1,000 square meter extra come from. So we are gonna just build with 5,000 square meters in mind, which I think is already more than enough. But it also has a reason, because this habitat features 4 different species from the game, 3 of which are from the latest Planet Zoo DLC, the Asia pack. So yeah, we are gonna knocking off not only a gigantic habitat and multi-species habitat, but also a lot of animals from the list from the new DLC, which is always nice to have that. And the animals that we are gonna build for, if you haven't already spotted all of them, is of course the Indian Rhino. Then we have the Nilgai, the Blackbuck, and the Père David's deer. And people who know their animal stuff would now say, wait a minute, there is an imposter among us. One of these animals is not like the other, and that is right, the Père David's deer. The Père David's deer is not an Indian animal. It's not an species from India, not a deer species from India. That would be something like the Barasingha, for example, is a deer species from India. But the Père David's deer is from China. It's a Chinese animal and a very rare animal. It's actually extinct in the wild due to hunting and habitat loss and things like that, and only because of zoos they are still around. But they don't really fit in an Indian-themed habitat like we have here. And the reason I include them is that the original inspiration for this habitat, the one from Schönbrunn, also features all of these animals except the Père David's deer. Instead, they have Vietnamese Sika deer in this habitat, which also in the same sense is not from India, as the name is suggesting. They are from Vietnam. So I thought, it's a nice substitute. It's also an animal or deer species from Asia. It's not from India, so we can just use them instead of the Sika deer, which we don't have in the game, unfortunately. Probably through mods, but I have no knowledge about what mods exist and what not. So we are just changing them out with the Père David's deer, and it's from the new pack. So I'm very happy to use them because they look amazing, as well as all the other animals from the new pack look amazing. And then of course we have the star of this habitat, which is the Indian rhinoceros, which comes from the base game. So the model is a little bit more outdated than the other ones. The other ones, of course, have more of the new fur animations and things like that, fur shaders and things like that. The Indian Rhino doesn't have fur, but the model itself isn't as realistic, if this is what you want to use, as the ones from this latest pack. But as you can see already, we started with all the barriers, or these very heavy wood barriers to keep the rhinos out. And you also saw me placing these bars, these vertical metal bars in between these wood barriers, and this is for all the other animals except the rhino to pass through to get to their backstage areas, open areas in the background, and also pass between the two habitats or between the two sides of the habitat, because with Indian rhinos you have to separate the male and the female apart from breeding season. Otherwise you keep them separate because they are very solitary animal and can be aggressive when kept together. So we are splitting this habitat into two sides, one for the male, one for the female. As usual, as in zoos, the female gets the bigger side because when they have calves or children in general, then they need a little bit more space, and the male can live on the smaller side of the habitat because it doesn't need that much space for its happiness. But yeah, all the other animals, the deer and the two antelope species, can walk freely between these two habitats, and I'm happy that I managed to make these metal bars wide enough so that all of the three animals can walk through them or jump through them. So, the blackbuck likes to jump through them, but they can walk freely between them. In real life, they would be closer together because now they would be theoretically, realistically wide enough for the rhino to get through. And only the PC hitbox or the hitbox of Planet Zoo prevents them from doing that. So in real life they would be closer together, but if they would make them closer together, then the the Père David deer and the Nilgai can't get through. And interestingly enough, the male Père David deer also can't get through. They can't go through these gates. So the female Père David deers, they can. I don't know what the difference is, because also the Nilgai can get through them, and the Nilgai is much bigger and much wider than the Père David deer. The only thing that could prevent the Père David deer is the antlers, but I don't know how this would affect the walking or the turning radius and things like that, because it is determined by if they can turn at any point on 360 degrees, then it's walkable for them. But the antlers wouldn't really prevent that. So I don't know why the male deer can't go through, but the male Nilgai can. It is a total riddle. I don't know why that is the case, but if you watched my last episode, I also had some shenanigans with animals and enrichment pieces there, and it didn't really make sense, so it is just Planet Zoo things at this point. We are also including 2 ponds over here, on both sides, of course, because both rhinos like to have spent a lot of time in the water. They are very aquatic rhino species, so we have to include these ponds. And also, of course, the Nilgai and the Père David deer also like to spend time in water. The Père David deer is actually a very aquatic deer species who spends a lot of the time in the day in the water, feeding on aquatic plants and things like that. So it is knocking two birds with one stone, basically, having this pool over here. And luckily the Real Zoo of Schönbrunn also built the second pool for the male a couple years ago. I think 2 or 3 years ago they made this pool for the male. When I was there, it was not still fully finished yet. There was some construction work going on, but both our rhinos now have a pool where they can access, which also serves as a water mode for the guests, so they can get very close to the rhinos without the rhinos and other animals escaping. In general, the whole habitat is very low when it comes to fences, things like that. Of course, you have some of these heavier fences to prevent the rhinos from getting out, but otherwise a lot of the fencing or enclosure design is designed around moats and getting the terrain lower, and then having just a thin layer or a thin stripe of hot wire around the premise. You saw me building that with the in-game hot wire fences to save some pieces, of course, but in general you just see a lot of rocks, you see a lot of moats and other terrain that slopes down, and not really huge fences or things like that, only in the backstage where you would have a more practical approach to everything. Then you see the classical fences to keep most of the ungulates in, basically. Another thing I want to talk about, which you can already saw in the intro cinematic is that this habitat is pretty barren. There is not much foliage going on here. The only foliage inside the habitat comes from trees, which are also heavily protected. But for anyone who tries to build realistic, or who's wondering why I didn't place any grass whatsoever inside the habitat, if you have an antelope species, one deer species, and 2 rhinos in a habitat, there isn't much vegetation staying alive after a couple of months, even or years. Most of the vegetation, because all of these animals are grazers, they feed on low vegetation. All of the grass will be either eaten away or trampled away by the rhinos and other animals. So you end up, if the habitat isn't brand new and just built, you end up that most of the space will just be dirt and sand. It is just a normal thing in rhino habitats, in hippo habitats, also in elephant habitats. At some point, grass just is destroyed and doesn't grow back because it's constantly trampled down. So that's why this habitat looks very barren, but we make up for that with the outside area, with the visitor area, where we have a lot of plants, a lot of other foliage and trees, to make it look a little bit more interesting. But in general, you can imagine that this being like an Indian steppe area. You're looking into an Indian savanna, basically Indian low dry forest, for example, with all these animals in there. And there's just not enough not enough foliage, not enough foliage from one point, but not enough humidity, not enough water to keep a stable population of low growing plants, for example. Now we are going on to one of my favorite things about this habitat when I was there, and that is this observation dock that goes into the habitat, and then you can walk onto that. Sadly, only via stairs. There's no ramp access for people with disabilities, but you can go up there, and then you look. You're standing basically inside the habitat. Animals are mostly almost all around you, and you get a really close look because this habitat is gigantic. It is a very big habitat, so a lot of animals usually like to stay in the back. And when I was there, all of the blackbuck stayed in the back. I couldn't really see them. I also didn't really saw the Nilgai. I only saw the Sika deer. So having this observation deck gives you the opportunity to see these animals, to get closer to them. And another thing I wanted to talk about in the beginning, but I forgot to mention it, is that it's a two-parter. You probably already saw that from the title of this video, but this is a two-part episode similar to the one from the giraffes, where in the first episode we have built the outside habitat, and then the second one we've built the modern giraffe house, the giraffe park. And this will also be the case here. In this episode, we will only build the habitat itself, none of the backstage areas and things like that. And in the second episode, which will come out next week, we will focus on the backstages for all the ungulates, so the Nilgai, the blackbuck, and the Père David's deer. And then we will also put a huge focus and a huge amount of time in next episodes on the rhino house. Because you can actually look into that, and if you can look into it backstage, I want to replicate that. And because it is a little bit more complicated and needs a little bit more time to build, because it is for one thing, it is circular. It has a circular shape, which I already put down and it has a path above and below it. So there are two paths on two elevations, basically. You can see it here in the background. That is where I already placed a little bit of a marker for me where the house will be and how the shape will be. Luckily, the diameter seems to be similar to the roof of the giraffe house, which I made with the glass pieces. So I could reuse that glass circle that I used for the giraffe house roof to make the outline for the rhino house. And it will be a really cool build once it's finished, because also this path you see here, which leads to the observation deck, is a dead end. The path to get to the other side of the zoo leads over the rhino house. So it is very important to include. Another thing I want to talk about is that we are very far away from the rest of the zoo. You probably can see in the background there's nothing around us here. It's all empty. This is basically the last habitat of the zoo before you exit the zoo on the other side. You can see me how far away it is from the other part of the zoo. There's an entrance or exit on near this habitat, so depending on where you enter the zoo, this will be the last or the first habitat you'll see. So we are on the other side of the zoo, basically in the more modern area and more modern parts of the zoo, back from all the old-timey Baroque-esque buildings, basically. And I wasn't really sure if I wanted to build that far away, because FPS is a thing, and my zoo already is still going quite good, but I noticed that FPS are going down slowly, and yeah, if I build such far away and then my FPS tanks completely, I have a huge empty field between this habitat and the rest of the zoo, which was also a problem in Raven Creek, where I would build all over the place and had huge empty fields between the areas, which looked really not good, and stopped me basically from doing building further, because I couldn't build further, but also because there was so much empty space between them that I would have to fix and fill, that it didn't really had a coherent plan. I have a plan for this one. I know where things will be. I already planned all the areas between this habitat and the rest of the zoo out. I just have to hope that I can build all of them. But yeah, it was a little bit of a risk to build this habitat so far away from the rest of the zoo. But I wanted to stick with the original plan of Schönbrunn for this habitat, because my outline of the zoo, or my plan of the zoo, how it's laid out, follows that plan from Schönbrunn. And so I couldn't really move this habitat to a different spot, because it is perfectly designed to fit in that space of that zoo. So I wanted to include that here, and also I will want to include the second entrance or exit, wherever you want to see it. I want to include that here as well. So there are two entrances to the zoo. So yeah, I hope it pays out. I hope it works out. I hope I can build the rest of the zoo between here and the core, basically center of the zoo. If you wanted the old center of the zoo, I hope I can do that, and it doesn't. And it doesn't stops me. The game doesn't stops me from doing it. The FPS don't stop me. Otherwise, I have to see what I can do to make it still work. But fingers crossed, knocking on wood 3 times, that everything works fine out. Because I would really hate to lose this habitat, because here it includes some of my favorite animals. I really love the Nilgai, I love the Blackbuck, the Père David. It's fine. I would much rather prefer a Barasinga, because they are very cool Indian deer species. But in general, these animals are really cool. I was really happy that we got them with this pack, and I would hate to lose them and lose this habitat, because it's a really cool habitat despite it being so barren. But if you want to keep it realistic, it is what it looks like, and we can't do anything really about it. But yeah, speaking of, as I said in the beginning about the barriers, now we are placing a lot of rocks which prevent the rhinos. I don't know how much they prevent animals like the blackbuck from escaping, but apparently it works. It is how it is in the real zoo of Schönbrunn, so it works. It just works in the word of Todd Howard. It just works, and yeah, we place a little bit of decoration later on with some bushes and plants like that would grow in this space, because they are protected from the animals. But yeah, we are now placing all the trees down here, the trees that we still have, that we then will either protect via more rocks or via tree guards made of wood, to prevent them from the rhinos getting too close to them to damage the bark, or the other animals eating them. I initially forgot to place some trees also in this area, but we'll do that later on. And yeah, as you see here, these red squares here in the background now, these will be the backstages for all the ungulates, which we will also build next week. So this space will transform and will change in the next video. It might look a little bit weird now, but just trust the process is I think what I want to say with that. And the rhino habitat then will be on the other side where the visitors are. You will also see, or you already saw in the intro cinematic, some other props basically in this area, in the visitor area. You saw a large crate and some other things standing there. These props I've built in the last live stream last week with my lovely community being there on Twitch, and we built these props. The crate is transport crate for rhinos, and a former transport crate for rhinos, so guests can see how these animals are transported in and out from the zoo. But it's also reminiscent of pet trading, of animal trading, of things like that. So there will be information about animal trading, about the black market, about animal parts, things like that, especially with rhinos and all these animals in the traditional medicine of the Asian countries. These animals get hunted down for their body parts, and the rest of the body is just wasted basically. So we have it would be nice to have some conservation information about these things, so people learn about them. And then we will also have, which I think it's called a Dama wheel. You will see it later in the real-time part better, which is like these cylinders, the metal cylinders, which have some sacred texts in them, some Buddhist texts. They are from, I think, Nepal. And you can, if you spin these cylinders with your right hand, going by, it's supposed to bring you luck and good fortune and things like that. So these are also there. And then I made height chart or information chart about all the other animals apart from the rhino. That is not in the real zoo of Schönbrunn. The other two things are, but I made this height chart for the Père David's deer, Blackbuck, and the Nilgai, so people can compare themselves with these animals. And I was very happy that the animal signs we got this time with the pack are very, very close to the real life height of these animals in the game, so it very much fits and matches with what we see in this habitat. But yeah, I will now leave you to the rest of the speed build with some nice music, while we fill out the empty spots and we fill out the foliage where we can fill out the foliage, which is not a lot, but there's still some foliage there. And then I will see you in the real-time part at the end of the video, and then we look at the finished habitat. Alright, and here we are now in our real-time part. And before we go all the way back there to look at our yeah, Indian forest, Indian savanna habitat, we have to do one naming for a new animal this time. And this suggestion comes from Bacon Bit Builder, and they ask if we could name the male sun bear Komang. It is a name used to refer to a third child in Indonesia, they say, and Markhor though has a pair of twin brothers, and maybe this is the third brother that then got, moved to a different zoo for breeding purposes and things like that. So let's find the male. This is the female, so this has to be the male over here, and we name them Komang. I miswrote that. So this is correct. Komang is the name of our male, Malayan or male sun bear now. So with that, we move all the way from here over to here to our habitat for the rhino, the Nilgai, the Blackbuck, and the Père David deer. We can move these out of the way, and now we start the game again. And we are with a little bit of low FPS here at the moment, but we are here in front of our habitat. You would enter it from either there or from this side, and then if you move closer, there's something moving. But you can already see our Père David's deer male over there. You can see the female rhino, our blackbucks moving around, and then also the Nilgais with all their enrichment and things like that. And the first pool over here, we also have this rhino statue that is there in the real zoo, and then we have our height chart for the 3 animals in this habitat that are in the rhino, so you can compare yourself how big you are compared to them. And apparently the Planet Zoo, you yourself as a player are around 2 meters high, which is interesting. This is measured correctly, but apparently you are a very high person, interestingly. But if you move further along, you have, as I said, these are the Dama wheels, and then there's one missing apparently already, but then you can go along here, spin them with your right hand, and then it brings you luck. No idea what this was. But over here, things are moving around a little bit because everything is closed up yet. But here we have our rhino transport box. We definitely want to add some more education about conservation, about about animal trading and black markets and things like that. So this will definitely be filled with some educational science. And then we can go up here and see you can see the habitat from over here. We can see into the backstage area from over there. There's a rhino over there. I think that is a male that got transported over, so we have to fix that later. But here you can see, I can also change the time of day a little bit, like that. You can see all the rhinos, you can see all the other animals in this very barren habitat, but I think it still looks very cool, especially also with the moving animals. We ignore that, with a little bit of leaves and mulch over here that got placed down to have some different undergrounds for the rhino feeds, because they're very sensible feet. They need a little of different structures. You have sand over here, for example, so that they have a wide variety of different different undergrounds for them to walk on. We have our mud pools, of course, with a Père David deer sleeping in them. I don't know how comfortable that is, but they do them. I don't judge them. But the other side, we can see the male area over here, and then nothing over that side. But we can quickly jump over there, going through the habitat, actually, which is at the moment empty, because all the other animals moved to the other side. But you would access this ramp from over here. Then you have a little bit of view from there, but the main view, of course, is this, which is the male rhino pool on this side, where you can see the male rhino and the other animals walking through. But as I said, the rest of this, and as also this and things like that, will be filled out in next week's episode. So let's move back to this to the areas that are already finished, which is this side. Let's move up here again for the best view. And then I would say you saw everything so far for this habitat. Again, next week we will continue. And until then, I hope you have a great time, you stay safe, and bye-bye, everyone.